Right now, the court also denied the lawsuit filed by the Ganjar Pranowo Mahfud MD pair that stated similar accusations. The court stated that it rejected the pair's appeal after reading and considering the arguments. So the next major question is, what happens in the aftermath of the ruling? To know more about this matter, we are now joined by Kennedy Muslim, a senior researcher from Indikator Politik Indonesia. Kennedy, thank you for coming.
Hello, Kennedy.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so today we heard the hearing and it is final and binding. So in your opinion, which parties outside the Koalisi Indonesia Maju or Onward Indonesia Coalition will actually join the government in the coming cabinet?
Yeah, the ruling today, for me, it marks the closing of one chapter of the electoral competition in the presidential election and opening up a new chapter in the process. What the new chapter here means the building of the coalition for the next government. Of course, pending the inauguration of the Prabowo and Gibran candidate as the next president and vice president of Indonesia. Of course, it's very interesting to see which party will join the government and which party will stay outside the government. We know we've seen the dynamics so far in the communications between the political actors during this whole process. Even though the MK is still going on, the MK ruling is still going on, we've seen some movement from the political actors in this country. And in my analysis, I think the most likely parties to join the next government is, which currently backs candidate Anies or candidate number 3, Ganjar, is Nasdem and PKB actually. And what's remaining interesting to see is how will PDIP position themselves in the next government. This is still an ongoing process. We know that there is a warring factions inside the PDIP. There's different factions. The one who's more taking a more reconciliative stance, led by Mbak Puan, and also the other camp inside the PDIP who's probably more wants to take a opposition stance. Yeah. Pak Hasto, and we know Pak Hasto usually also reflects what the Ibu Mega's party wants for the party.
Something very interesting you mentioned is that PKB and Nasdem could be most likely to join governments that were outside of the the Koalisi Indonesia Maju parties, right? But you've also mentioned, PDIP's stance. In your analysis, with the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle still leading in terms of legislation, is that going to affect how this new government is going to be built upon? Do you think that the particular coalition is also going to consider any opportunities of joining hands, or how are they going to regulate this in terms of building the next cabinet?
Yes, if we look at the example from the President Jokowi's second term, he is building a super majority coalition, right? And that really strengthened his position as a president to implement his policies and his programs. And it's also making him less prone to the hostage situation by any one particular party. If he only has, like, let's say, only below 60%, then one party can held hostage the government. Which is why there is always an incentive for the president in Indonesia, set by the example of President Jokowi, to build as big a coalition. So I think the same pattern will be implemented by Pak Prabowo. That's why he will also build a super majority coalition. I think it's above 70% is a safe number for him to consider, since it will make him more stronger in the next government, his position more stronger, and also less prone to the hostage situation by any particular party. Because the principle here is, the bigger the coalition, the less leverage each party inside the coalition will have.
So just a little bit of a follow-up. In order, from the data that we've gathered, and also from the numbers that have already come in, right?
Yes.
So do you think this supermajority is possible?
Yes, it's very possible. If we see, let's say, PKB and Nasdem is joining the government, so it left only PDIP and PKS outside the government. If we add up those two parties, it's around 23 to 25%. So Prabowo will have the support of around 75% of the seats
Right.
in the parliament. That's a very comfortable margin for him to govern for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I was just thinking how healthy is this situation? I mean, we need to have checks and balances as well.
Yes,
to have
which is why I think
opposition.
we have to strike the right balance between culture of strong opposition in order to provide a healthy checks and balance in our democracy, but also at the same time, if the government is like only a simple majority, it also has a drawback of a very unstable government because one party can hold hostage the government for the next 5 years.
All right.
Which is why I think the right balance is what I just mentioned, around that 70 to 75% of support in the parliament is enough to guarantee the stability of the government, of the next government, but also it also left an ample opposition voices in the outside the government.
Right. Okay. Now, how likely it is you think that Ganjar and Anies will be invited into the cabinet?
I think there is less leverage right now for Anies and Ganjar because we know they are not party elites, and so they don't hold any position inside the central party, which is why I think there is less incentive for Prabowo also to invite Anies and Ganjar. Moving forward from this point forward, I think the deal making will happen between Prabowo and the chairman of the parties instead of with the candidate, because that chapter has been closed, the electoral competition. But saying this, I'm not closing the possibility that Anies still might have a chance to run in the next to become to run again as the Jakarta governor candidate, because he still have that chance. But for Ganjar, I think there is still a very limited option for him, other than whatever position or task that will be given by his party in the next 5 years.
Okay.
So very, very interesting. You've mentioned before this is the closing of one chapter, right? Now that the the Constitutional Court has ruled and it's legally binding, has the public's perception of the Constitutional Court changed after this particular ruling has been made earlier today? How do you see this as
Yes.
an expert?
Our polling company has done the surveys for the Indonesian voters, Indonesian public. We do a phone surveys just last week, and we just released the results yesterday. And we found that the public actually held a very high trust level toward whatever the MK will decide today. At the same time, if we ask them how satisfied are you with the conduct of how the election is being conducted in 2024 presidential election, and 3/4 or around 75% of the public are satisfied with the conduct of the election, even though there's still like around 24% of the public is less or not satisfied with the conduct of the election. And if we break it down, we can see the pattern that it's mostly Anies supporters who are not satisfied with the results of the
MK hearing today.
The MK, not the MK hearing, the result of the elections. But even among the Ganjar supporters, it's still the majority kind of accepting of the results of the election.
All right. Now, we don't want any divisive or Indonesia being divided into some kind of fractions, right? So what steps do you think, if you can perhaps give it to Pak Prabowo and two pairs and also the political parties behind it, so that we can promote national unity after the ruling?
Yes, I think the phase of reconciliation will starting from today, and of course we've seen even during the Idul Fitri there's already like silaturahmi between Pak Prabowo and all the elites. But there's still a problem when it comes to Prabowo's relationship especially with PDIPs, since I think there's still a unfinished business or open wound between the relationship between President Jokowi and Ibu Megawati, which is why it's a challenge for PDIP to enter into the Prabowo's next government. But as we know, in the Indonesian political culture, usually the reconciliation and the politics are very flexible among the elites, and they can easily like switch sides.
It's like playing games, basically.
Yeah, just.
I would like to have a little bit of a follow-up questions in regards to that cabinet. You mentioned before that there is a strained relationship, right? But this is, it goes back to the cabinets. PDIP, for quite some time now, has always been involved in the government as well, in the cabinets, and we can see their presence. Do you think that the strained relationship will, are they still interested in joining this, in joining the cabinet, or have they fully gone, okay, we're going to stay as an opposition for now?
Yes, based on the current situation, I still think that I explained earlier, there are two factions inside PDIP. There are one faction who's more willing to join the next government, and there is another faction who sees that the strained relationship between Jokowi and Megawati is it's hard to repair at the moment. So it's better if they stay in the opposition,
right.
While they are waiting also to see the dynamics of the relationship between Prabowo and Jokowi. If there is a start the cracking of the relationship between Jokowi and Prabowo, I think the same dynamics when Jokowi invite Prabowo in order to balance the influence of Megawati, it also will happen here if Prabowo starts to feel that Pak Jokowi is starting to have a heavy intervention in his government. He will probably invite PDIP in order to balance the influence of Pak Jokowi. This is all the power game going forward.
Power game. Talking about President Joko Widodo, we saw a lot of the headlines before the election going on February 14 this year. Headlines saying that Indonesia is about to have the big election where we also will see the son of the president into the vice presidential running. So how do you think the international community has seen Indonesia and its election, and later on in the ruling that we have the elect president now?
Yeah, if we saw the foreign medias, there are certain critical notes on the issue of how Gibran became the Prabowo's minister, the issue of nepotism surrounding it. But if we look at the actual survey data for the Indonesian voters, actually they don't really make a fuss of the issue of Gibran becoming the Jokowi, because they've seen it in their daily lives that their bupati, their governor, like if they perform well, when they advance if they push forward their wives or their children to run, usually they will also vote for their families, as long as is still popular and is also loved by the people. So this is why amidst the high approval rating of Jokowi, with Gibran becoming the deciding factor in helping Prabowo win the presidency.
All right. All right, Kennedy Muslim, thank you so much for coming to See Today's Studio and giving us your insights.
Yeah,
Yeah, certainly really interesting. This is going to be some colorful times, and thank you for elaborating, especially that we finally, as Kennedy's mentioned before, are closing an important chapter in terms of the future of Indonesia today.
True. All right, we're going for another break now.
Yes, and after the break, Rory will be right back with you to deliver economics and business updates, so stay tuned with us and with your news show and See Today.